Animation in 3D Studio Max is created using a method called keyframing. Keyframing is basically taking an object and at a certain time moving it to a new position. A keyframe is added at that new position at that new time, and 3D Studio Max automatically in-betweens that animation. So if I place a keyframe here, move the time slider, and put a keyframe here, 3D Studio Max would move this object from the first keyframe to the second keyframe point, and it would interpolate that. And when it does that, it adds what's called a motion controller and a motion path to that object. And when we get into the track view, we'll talk about those in a little more detail. For right now, let's talk about creating keyframes. So I move back to time 0. I turn on the animate toggle button, and when this is on, a little red box appears around the active view. This is telling you that you're in animation mode, so any movement that I do to this object will be recorded as a keyframe. So the first keyframe I want here at time 0, I want my purple ball to be right there. So I'm going to move my time slider to about 40 seconds. Then I'm going to move my purple sphere to the left, just to the edge of the frame. 3D Studio Max remembers that position at that time. When I turn off the animation toggle, I can safely move objects without creating new keyframes. So now what I'm going to do is pull the slider back, and you can see that 3D Studio Max keyframes uses the keyframes to in between the motion of that object. So it interpolates from the first position to the second position. You may be asking, how do I know where the keyframes are? Well, simple. Say I deselect all my objects. You'll notice in my front, top, and left views that there's a white box around the purple sphere. This tells me that there's a keyframe for that object at this time. If I step forward, you can see that that keyframe marker disappears until another keyframe appears, which should be around 40 frames. So at 40 frames, the keyframe marker goes around the object. So for the purple sphere, there's a keyframe at frame 40 and at frame 0. In the interface section, we talked about the animation controls. We can use these here, now that we've created a very simple animation. I can click play, and it will loop the animation, and I can see what it looks like. I can also press stop, go back a frame, go forward a frame, go all the way to the end, go all the way to the beginning. So that's how you create a basic animation in 3D Studio Max. You turn on the animation toggle, you move through time, and you move your objects through space. If I want to move this anymore, I can move to a different time, and I can move my sphere back and over, and then at the end of my animation I can have it come back to where it started. Turn off the animation toggle, press play, and I can see my keyframes. And remember, if you want to see where a keyframe is, simply drag until you see the keyframe marker around the object that's selected or the object that's moving. If it's deselected, you can still see it. See it right there? Frame 40, frame 0. Oh, there's one. Frame 78 and frame 100.